There were 7 of us sitting outside on a patio. A father asked his 30-something-year-old son, "Introduce yourself, son." So he started making his way around. "Hi, nice to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you." Person after person. And then me. Nothing. He moved on. And I actually paused because I thought, surely he's going to come back. Nope. So finally I reached out my hand and I said, "I must be invisible. Hi, I'm Gabriela Holt," and introduced myself. Now, I could make this entire video about whether that guy was rude. Maybe he was. Maybe he was distracted. Maybe he genuinely didn't realize he skipped me. I have no idea. And that's actually not the interesting part. The interesting part is what happens inside of you when someone treats you like you're invisible. Welcome to the Love Framework. Love stands for lead with self, own your story, value your voice, or maybe your worth in this instance, and evolve unapologetically. Or perhaps embrace your future for this specific topic. And this tiny little patio interaction got me thinking about the V, value your worth, because being overlooked can do something weird to us. Someone doesn't acknowledge you, doesn't invite you, doesn't respond, doesn't recognize your contribution, walks right past you. And suddenly, the brain starts doing its detective work. Why didn't he introduce himself to me? Did I do something? Does he not like me? What's wrong with me? And before you know it, somebody else's behavior has become evidence in a trial about your worth. No, that's where I want us to interrupt the story, because someone else's failure to see you is not evidence that you're invisible. Let me say that again. Someone else's failure to see you is not evidence that you're invisible. I didn't need to sit there getting smaller. I didn't need to wait for his father to notice. I didn't need the other people at the table to rescue the moment. And I also didn't need to turn it into a confrontation. I could simply reach out my hand and say, "Hi, I'm Gabriela Holt." There's something about that moment that I love now. Because physically, I did what I think we sometimes have to learn to do emotionally. I introduced myself. I didn't wait for somebody to restore my visibility. And that's different from demanding attention. It's different from saying, "Hey, everybody, look at me." It's saying, "I'm here. I belong at this table too. And I don't need your behavior to determine whether that's true." Maybe your version isn't somebody skipping your introduction. Maybe you've been talking in a meeting and someone spoke over you. Maybe somebody else got credit for your idea. Maybe everyone was invited except for you. Maybe you've been ghosted. Maybe somebody you cared about stopped seeing you the way you hoped they would. Those experiences can hurt. Love doesn't mean pretending that they don't. Valuing your worth isn't, "I don't care what anybody thinks." We're human. We care. It's refusing to turn someone else's behavior into your identity. There's a big difference between "that person didn't acknowledge me" and "I'm not worth acknowledging." One describes what happened, and the other creates a story about who you are. That's where love comes in. Lead with yourself. Own the story you're telling yourself about what happened. Value your worth independently of somebody else's behavior. And then choose how you want to move forward. Sometimes that might mean letting it go. Sometimes it might mean setting a boundary. Sometimes it might mean speaking up. And sometimes, apparently, It means sticking out your hand and saying, I must be invisible. Hi, I'm Gabriela Holt. Would I phrase it exactly the way that I did today? Honestly, probably. But here's what I want you to remember. You don't become invisible when somebody finally sees you. You were there the whole time. Con amor y luz.